Bruno could see the way I fuck with that board when he's not here.
Yeah.
If I go to record something, I just start pressing everything.
Yeah. He
Like, why isn't this fucking... It's only the left side now. I hate Bruno.
Thanks for the cold opening.
Oh, that's the opening.
Yeah.
This is how we do it, by the way. That's how we open.
Yep, it's there.
We open the show.
We pick it up off the street.
This is what
it's
we
right
do.
There.
The street.
It's like when you're walking your dog and you look down and he's like feasting on some chicken bone or something like that. And you're like, that is a perfectly good drumstick.
And that's fine.
And so there it is.
And that's dinner.
Right, that's dinner for the dog.
All right? Now stop looking at me before I punt you. I hate little dogs. Don't you just want to kick them
It
hard?
depends. No, it depends.
I mean, not just out of curiosity. I'd like to see how far I could kick one of those little dogs.
Oh, that's just mean.
You know the ones that are really little?
Yeah.
And they have like that walnut skull?
Walnut? Oh,
like
boy.
their brain is the size of a walnut.
Yeah.
And their owners are talking to them like they're people. Like, you're hungry, aren't you? You're excited today, aren't you? And all that thing is thinking is food. Food. Sleep.
That's kind of what we're all
Food.
thinking. Yeah.
But the owners are like,
Cold.
You don't like the Buffalo Bills, do you? No, you fucking retard. It's an animal. It's a mammal.
But how do you really feel about it?
I feel grateful that Damon DiMarco is in studio with us, ladies and gentlemen.
That's an intro. That is an intro.
Welcome to Three People Like This Interviews. And now, a man who should be on some sort of fucking watch list. TJ Stone.
Damon DiMarco is an actor, author, playwright, and screenwriter. And I remembered that, and I didn't read it off of the iPad from the bio on his website. And sitting next to him, I want you to introduce the person sitting next to him.
With us, we have Afrim Gejembadabal.
Very, very...
It's close.
Very close.
Very
yes.
close.
Yeah.
That's all. That's the most we can do.
Yes.
Is get close.
It's Afrim Jambalai.
Sure it is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever.
You
it
guys
is.
are
we
whatever.
don't even believe you now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's at that
another
point.
person.
Gambadochi, man. This world, this compass needle thing is really opening up a world to us, isn't it? I met Damon through Charles Goforth, who I was, charitable enough to have in and let him express some stuff. I felt bad for him.
He would have expressed it someplace else. He would have the street corners,
right,
parks.
Yeah, I could see Charles just talking to himself in the park somewhere. Him and I had lunch recently in Manhattan.
The lunches?
Yeah, I haven't done that in a long time.
You
man.
haven't lunched before?
I haven't lunched with a person.
Well, you haven't lived until you've lunched.
Yeah, we lunched at a diner, and the guy next to us ordered something that smelled so bad I wanted to find out where he was born and kill everybody in that town.
Whoa.
That's how bad the food smelled.
That's some bad baklava.
How did you get into
Incite
acting, Damon?
genocide because of the smell of food.
He just burned down an entire nation.
Yeah,
because,
well, they deserved it.
because the babka was bad.
It might have been that. I didn't know what it was. Ask Charles about the smell of that food.
Okay.
And then we both smelled it, and I just looked over at the guy, looked at Charles, and said, now, if I disembowel him in front of everybody, I'm the bad guy.
Well, yeah.
I'm the bad guy. Oh, if I disembowel him in the restaurant in front of everybody, I'm the bad guy.
It could be a slight overreaction.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah, right.
Impulsive.
He's, this is why he's on the park.
Damon, how did you get into acting?
That's the pivot.
I went to
there.
the Charlie
Did you hear
Rose.
that?
I went to the Charlie Rose School of Interviewing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You need a slight Southern accent.
That's it.
And you need to.
You didn't notice it?
Yeah.
That's as Southern as it gets.
Can you try it again?
Well, how did you get into acting there, faggot? Oh, you like to express yourself on stage. Oh, that's real South. I'm sorry, that's very South.
That's like Deliverance. I don't know where that's.
He's from a cave.
That's pretty.
He's from a cave in the bayou, maybe somewhere. I don't know.
I have nothing to say to that, but I want to stay away from it.
I bet you like to wear tight leotards on stage.
Only.
Let me see how that looks, faggot.
Only on the weekends. And if they're paying me, sure, why not?
I mean,
it's like.
We got right to the douchey part when I do this and embarrass your friends up for him. We got right to it. We
okay.
cut in minutes in. But he wouldn't be here if he didn't listen to the show. So
Yeah. Are we on?
Oh, nah.
this-
getting
oh,
levels.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you're on. You're live.
Right. Oh, good.
This is 3PLT Interviews. Our guest today is Damon DiMarco, writer of some of the most influential acting books in regard to Meisner technique with William Esper.
And he's also one of them there closet homosexuals, I bet.
That's right.
Asking me what I think about stuff. Why don't you just go ahead and kiss me then, faggot? Give it a shot. I might not back off. Don't tell my wife I love you.
I do have my own collection of ceramic unicorns. I should lay it out there
Oh,
right now.
now you got my interest.
I know.
What does that
I
mean?
knew that about you.
Really?
He just looked at you.
Well,
and
you
I
have the
said,
ceramic
we
unicorns.
can talk about the next book, Bronies of NYC,
Oh, really?
and
what is
Damon
that?
can break us down.
oh, really?
Bronies?
What is
yeah,
bronies? Well,
bronies.
really,
Men-
we really
men
should give him
who-
a little bit of credit.
Men
Maybe-
who dress as unicorns in like special outfits, and they.
I
Okay,
swear,
anyway,
I thought that was a
so-
real. I thought that was a real thing. That's a real thing. I thought you were talking about a real book, but that's
I
a
thought he
thing
was.
that people
He's
do.
good.
He's fantastic.
He's fantastic. He really is. Did you rehearse that? Or?
Not at all.
It's just improvised. I love
I
that.
I feel free in this space.
you know why he's good? Because he said it with a straight face,
Well,
and that's all acting is, right, Damon?
it's
just-
you know, if you can fake authenticity, you've got it made. Totally got it made.
I love that line.
Totally got it made.
No, but really, you did write the book on acting.
I wrote a book
You
on
write
acting.
the
There's
book.
no the book on acting.
You wrote the book.
No, that's just nonsense.
No, because it lends credence to my
Two
show
books.
if I say it like that.
Oh, okay. Well,
Okay.
if the numbers go up,
There
sure.
you go. So he wrote the book
I
on
wrote-
acting.
sure.
Well, you wrote a book with,
William Esper.
and he's
He's
a
the
guy.
real. Bill's the real deal. Bill's the real deal.
he is the real deal,
yeah,
isn't he?
he really is.
I've heard his name thrown around quite a bit in my circles,
There are a few people who spend their entire lives doing something that they're just totally passionate about.
and he's one of them.
He's absolutely one of them.
And he is a descendant of Meisner.
Well, he's not related to him by blood.
Well,
but,
that's
you
what
know,
that's how I'm pushing it.
Yeah, he studied with him for 17 years, and he actually taught with him and helped manage the neighborhood playhouse. And he was, I think, an assistant director or something like that. But yeah, he worked with Sandy very well. So he was Sandy's right hand man for a while, and so he learned a lot.
I'm hesitating because I know that it's honestly, Damon wrote one of the greatest books I've ever read.
Ooh,
And here we go. I didn't want to do it, but I have to do it. It's very near and dear to my heart.
here
but
we go. All right.
Tower Stories, the oral history of 9/11 of 9/11.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What he did was, and I know you're here, and you could obviously describe it a little better than me, but in the days and months and weeks after 9/11, Damon, he interviewed people that were there, in the towers, around the towers, affected by it, and it's a first-person account from different people. Each chapter is a different person's story of what took place.
Wow.
And Jesus Christ, first of all, what was the?
What prompted somebody
yeah.
to even
Yeah.
try and do that?
Yeah.
It's a good question. I don't even know the answer. I'm trying to think back to, God, it was 17 years
Yeah,
ago, right?
isn't that insane?
And I was living in Manhattan, and I was a young actor and unemployed, as young actors frequently are. So I wanted to do something. It's like you have that thing. It's like, well, what can I do?
Right,
And they weren't letting people down in the pit I'm not a welder.
right.
Yeah,
You're not.
I have no skills that can help.
Yeah.
I write. I'm an actor. What can I do? So it was just this idea of like I just went out and started talking to people. Everybody wanted to talk at the time. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Everybody had a story.
Yeah.
Some people were related to people who'd been in the towers. Some people were in the towers when it happened. Some people had theories, and I kept hearing all this, and the news and the media spin things the way the news and the media do it, because that's what they are. But I thought somebody ought to really be writing this stuff down, because years from now, we're going to want to remember this. And it's not about remembering the bad stuff, because that's kind of self-evident, but the way people were helping was unbelievable to me. There was this spirit of everybody coming together and saying, I can make a sandwich for somebody I've never met before.
I can give somebody a ride to the Upper East Side.
I can do that.
I can bring 10 cases of water.
I can do whatever. Yeah. I mean,
Whatever.
You had people coming in from all over the country who had just dropped everything to say, I can stand with you.
I'm
I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about that.
Yep.
Because, at the end of the day, that's what we have. you know how the world is, you know how life is, you know how people are. But
Yep.
when times get rough, and we keep doing that over and over and over again, I start to have a pretty good view of humanity.
Yeah, it's what you choose to focus on.
We all get a choice.
We were talking about this briefly before we turned the mics on, how, the narrative, like a friend, we were saying before, like, you can call this what it is, but the human race has been doing this forever. There's been mass killings, homicides, like war, death, violence. It's been there forever.
It's part of who we are.
It's part.
And I'm not saying that as forgiveness, like, hey, we should keep doing it. But I think the only way into that whole puzzle is through compassion, to say, because the moment you demonize somebody and say stop doing that, well, then you're kind of playing the game, right? You're kind of providing an opposing force to somebody.
Yeah.
And that just perpetuates the game, right?
Well, it makes it like a show, like we said.
Yeah.
It's like it becomes a show. Like, it's those guys on that side and us on this side, and
Correct.
those guys are the bad guys, and
It's us versus them.
I always think specifically of the person,
Yeah.
regardless of the motivation or the affiliation or whatever it is. The guy who opened the window in Las Vegas and just started spraying the crowd was a terrorist, right? Specifically,
Sure, however you want to define that.
but
yeah,
that
sure.
person, that guy, is defective. In my opinion, like, that's a defective guy.
I don't know what I don't have the bandwidth to know what motivates somebody to do something like that, for better or for worse. It's just, I can't even begin to speculate on something like that. However, it's kind of irrelevant.
At the end of the day, it's irrelevant.
At the end of the day, it's how can we help the people who are affected?
That's what happens.
How can this notion that it'll never happen again and we have to take steps I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way.
It never works that way.
I think that the only thing that anybody can ever do is conduct themselves in a fashion that they would want to see other people emulate.
Yeah.
I think those moments where people embrace that negative aspect that you've been saying that has been happening since the beginning of time, that conversely, if others embrace the thing that also has existed since the beginning of time, which was to help to kind of cultivate and harvest and work together, then that's the thing that counters that without being the readily opposing force of, like, we got to stop this. It's like, well, you're focusing on the wrong thing. The thing that happened that I remember also from 9/11, when people came together, the action of the terrorism itself was secondary to people saying, hey, this moment right now, people need help.
Correct.
I'm not actually even looking at the previous moment. I'm literally in this moment right now.
Yeah, and it happened quick.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Didn't it happen quickly? It happened almost within hours. Like, you felt this different vibe take place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was fear, obviously, and it was devastating, but it was almost immediate.
You're talking about the cooperation.
Yes.
Yeah.
The cooperation and the help and the love that was in the air. And, so the idea that you had this wherewithal to go out and start talking to people who were there, did it happen that day? Was it one day after?
It was within 1 week.
1 week.
It was within 1 week. I did my first interview outside my apartment with a police officer who'd been down there. A lot of police officers were cycling in off duty. And one of the guys in the 20th precinct down the street from where I lived had been there. And so I didn't know that when I interviewed him. I just saw a guy in uniform, and I figured, you've got a perspective on this. And he told me what he and men and women in the department, his department, were doing in his precinct. And the thing that was funny about it is that I just kept doing it. And it's like anything else. If you just keep doing it, something, I don't know, the universe says,
Yeah.
I can help.
So did you record these?
Yeah,
interviews?
This is kind of funny looking back. I had a mini digital, not a digital recorder. What do you call those? Magnetic cassettes, the micro cassettes.
The micro cassettes.
Now we look at them; they're like 8 tracks.
But they're ancient. Yeah.
I had a box full of these things, because after a while people were referring me to other people, and so then my work became easier because the phone started ringing off the hook. You should talk to this person. Oh, I hear you're doing this. You should talk to this person. And here's me running around with this micro cassette recorder, putting it down in people's living rooms or in people's offices, or one guy wanted to meet me in a park because he didn't feel safe still in buildings. And so, it all seems insane looking back.
Did that first guy that you interviewed, did he make the book?
No.
So
no.
that's interesting.
Well, it's a crisis of publication is really what it is. I probably did about 100 interviews all told.
Oh, really?
And you can't put all that into a book, and you really wouldn't want to, because different people have overlapping perspectives, and so one person is touching on this aspect of it, and the other person, it's not about comparing what they offered you. It's just saying I'm trying to cover the broadest mosaic possible.
Yeah, it's the different layers and different aspects.
So I can only put so many pebbles into this mosaic. Yeah. And so that's, otherwise you'd have a volume that's, for people not seeing this, it's like 3 feet wide. A book has to be a book. It's got to be a certain length, and it's got to be,
Do you get really emotional when you're talking to these people?
No, I didn't.
Try and disconnect?
I didn't at the time because my attention was on them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was an interview.
There was something that happens during that process where you can kind of disengage. But, I won't lie to you. It was tough.
It was tough. I read it. Reading it is tough.
Yeah,
man.
Things, especially after a year and a half of it, then it got tough.
Some of the things that surprised me were, like you hear people, like when one woman, when she left the building, she refused to believe that two planes had hit. Like she was arguing. There were arguments amongst people who left the building about exactly what happened. They were in denial.
Yeah,
and they would like point at the building and say, "Look, there's both of the buildings are on fire." And she was angry with people, and the perspective, and then the idea that these guys were running in, these firemen, running up.
They're running up when
it.
Everybody else is running down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A funny part of it, well, not funny, but an interesting part of it, it was a detective that he interviewed, and he just raged on about liberals and right. That guy,
he had his perspective.
Yeah.
Here's a guy on homicide. He was a homicide detective, and at the time they were treating, if you recall, there was a phase, and I forget how long it lasted exactly, but they were treating it as one homicide, or 3,000 homicides or something like that before. I think people quickly realized we have no paradigm for this whatsoever. So here he and his partner are, among many detectives, assigned to track down a lead of an Egyptian flight attendant who just happened to be in New York that day, and somebody had said, "Oh, I overheard him saying something." So he's trying to track down these wild leads, because remember, we had no clue how this could have happened,
right.
or where it could have come from.
You know what that reminds me? Go ahead. Go. So they were tracking down this.
Well,
this guy. He was Egyptian. He was an Egyptian air pilot,
and they're on. A detective schedule is pretty wacky. I don't know how those guys live. Period. Men and women. But then they're pushing them extra hours, and so. And meanwhile, they're also he had to go out to Fresh Kills landfill, which they were using as an improvised morgue.
Yeah, they were sifting through body parts.
That's got to do something to these are human beings. Detectives are human beings, right? So, they come home every day to their kids, and their kids are upset because they don't see them, and they know that something has happened. And this guy had a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
He's frayed. He's really ragged.
I just picture a New York City cop going, "Leave me alone. I've been digging through fucking legs and arms and thumbs. You want me to go fucking play ball in a fucking park? Leave me alone. Get away from me."
Also, if they have a moment,
that's who the guy was.
That's who he was, right?
That's who the guy was. Yeah.
He's like,
if they get a moment to actually express themselves, and somebody is legitimately asking them, without the need of something in return, that's probably the first time that he was in a position. So he just is unpacking all of that for the first time.
Yeah, a couple of beers helped him, as I recall. But that was part of what he was at that point too. I remember thinking this guy is putting down a lot.
He's he's kind of anesthetizing himself.
We
know guys like that. We know Brooklyn cops like that. We know those guys.
It's a tough job.
It's
it's a tough job. It takes a very, very select kind of person to be able to see the kinds of things that people like that see every day.
Very to the point. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's a guy you want with you if there's ever something going down.
I would imagine.
I
would imagine.
And then what happened with this Egyptian airline pilot?
Nothing came of it.
Nothing came of it. It was a fault. It was a jilted boyfriend or lover. He was gay.
Yeah.
They found that he was gay. They couldn't get him to admit that he was gay.
Right.
That was a great part of the story. The FBI went in and talked to this guy, and he gave them nothing. So, but the the NYPD detective was like, these fucking feds, they don't know what they're doing. Get them the fuck out of here. Let me talk to this guy. Because they were really like dialed in on this guy. In 20 minutes, he found out that the guy was gay. He didn't want to admit to the feds that he was gay. And he's not a fucking terrorist. He's just, his boyfriend got mad at him and he called up on him. And he said, the guy wasn't a bad guy. He's fucking gay. If that's in the book, he's like, if that's your thing, that's your thing. I'm not going to hold it against you, but he's not a terrorist.
And
Now this is so to the point.
And put yourself in the flight attendant's position.
Oh, I thought he was a pilot.
All right,
whatever.
I forget if it was a flight attendant or a pilot.
Same
but
shit. Those people, whatever.
Well, you know, he's
They
either
all look
flying the plane
same,
or
these fucking pilots.
he's
and
serving
whatever.
somebody nuts. You know.
Right.
But you know, he I can imagine he must have been terrified.
Sure, he was.
Now here he's being essentially singled out because he is Middle Eastern.
Yep.
You know, so you know, from his perspective, it's like, well,
Listen.
you know, like,
Yep.
holy, you know,
Yeah.
why would I tell these people anything?
That's right.
You know, why would I tell these people?
I'm going to tell them I'm not only am I Muslim, I'm gay too. Feds. White feds that are just 2 days off of 9/11.
It's
yeah,
like,
they're going to treat me great.
yeah. I mean, one of the guys that I interviewed for the book was on a flight from Los Angeles to New York. Like I think it was like right after they opened the airlines again, which probably was like 3 or 4 days after.
Yeah.
And immediately, you know, he was sitting there on the plane, and police officers came onto the plane. They pulled off 2 or 3 conspicuously Middle Eastern-looking people.
Yeah.
And nobody on the plane said a word.
Nope.
And I said to the guy that I was interviewing, Chris Cass, I said, well, how did you feel about that? And he says, well, it's discrimination, obviously. But I got to tell you, it's just I remember thinking it's a really bad time to be a Muslim in America.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because all eyes now are focused on you as the other, you know.
Yeah.
And so,
And that's
right
what
or
happens.
wrong, whether you're a good, bad, or other person, you know, all of these rules don't apply. You are suddenly the them and the us and them.
Right. And then you have people running with that narrative
And
pounding it into the media.
And it's so damaging.
It's
right?
bad.
Because you know that these people didn't do anything wrong. They're just like any of us.
It's part of the problem. You know what it is? It's part of the same line of thinking and manipulation that got the guys to do the thing in the first place.
Yeah, it's an oversimplification.
Right?
It's an oversimplification of what it is, and that's something that human brains, any program, any computer wants a simple program, right? It's just easier to execute. Yeah. I want to know where the line is so that I can properly observe that line, cross it when I have to, but I have to have a line, you see. Yeah. And the more we subscribe to the lines, we think that we're getting a real package, you see. Life is getting simpler. I know where the lines are, and when in reality, what happens, I find, is things become immensely more complex than you had ever possibly imagined. In that you're oversimplifying things.
You're oversimplifying.
Yeah, you're taking people who are your allies, for instance, and you're criminalizing them.
Criminalizing them, and I always think of it as like a movie, and we need a bad guy.
Of course.
To control.
The lines are really blurred, and I think what blurs the line is the fact that it's like, you know, when you were in grammar school even, you know, one kid does something bad and the whole room has to stay for detention or something until somebody admits it, then nobody admits it. But it's that one bad apple that, you know, makes the lines blurred.
Agreed. And this is society. This is a society thing, right? The moment human beings come together, as you pointed out earlier, you know, the great thing about us is that we're still here. You know, we've been doing this for how long? 10,000 years, you know, give or take.
At least.
You know,
yeah.
And yet
that we know of.
That we know of, right? You know, and we're still here.
Right.
And we're more, believe it or, you know, I read the other day that we're more integrated than ever. We're kinder to each other than ever. We live longer than we ever have before.
You wouldn't think so, right?
You wouldn't think so.
You
because,
wouldn't think
we
so.
have our own snapshot that we're looking at, right?
Yeah.
But the mortality rates are lower than they ever have been. Yes, there's still wacky stuff going on. But, you know, in the whole evolution of humanity, we're kind of getting a little better. It's just taken a really, really long time.
It's amazing to me that we can have all that, and at the same time, you have people that are willing to do these type of things. Like, I don't understand it. I said to Charles, like, is it a bad thing to think that just evolution is skipping some people by and they're still fucking animals?
No.
You know?
From their point of view, they might have a very valid reason for doing what they're doing. And I know that may sound anti-whatever.
No, it doesn't. I'm just trying to figure it out.
I don't think that anybody sane tries to do these acts. Okay? They either have a damn good reason why they
feel justified in their actions.
Everybody feels justified in their actions. Otherwise, they wouldn't perpetuate the action.
Yeah.
If you go home and you yell at your wife, you feel justified.
Well, she's
in
a
that.
cunt. Oh, I'm sorry, Damon.
Oh,
you don't know my wife.
No.
Well, if you did, you'd
True
say
enough. True enough. But
See, I thought he might mention Charles Manson. No, he says my wife.
But
I'm just trying to bring a little levity here to the 3PLT show.
Well, I think with this huge evolution of the world in general and all the things that we have, and being able to come together and have podcasts and cell phones and coffee that we can make, instantly. That isn't freaking Sanka or something like that, but it's just like
Sanka's bad.
It's really bad. That's why I said it's much better than that.
Bad.
I love him.
Today's episode is brought to you by Sanka.
Decaf. Do you have a spoon and hot water? Mix it up.
With the same gravity he talks about terrorism, he talks about how bad Sanka is.
Well,
Sanka's
I'm saying in general, the world, like for all the good things that happen on a daily basis, for some reason, it just doesn't attract the attention. Like maybe there's something in us that's the attention is towards fear. The attention is towards loss. The attention is towards these things because that's all you see on the news. I'm sure there were 100 beautiful things that happened yesterday, but on the news, the focus was the guy on the West Side Highway in the bike lane, hitting people and then shooting.
Yeah.
And then, our fear and attention is back on this thing. What's going on?
Well, it sells.
Yeah, if it bleeds, it leads, right?
Well, see,
it sells a lot of advertising.
The good news stories are pretty much locked within the morning shows. They'll do talk a little bit about fashion, that new lipstick, or what fruits are best for you. Like they talk about things that could actually impact our lives in a positive way, but only in the morning shows. Past noon, you're fucked. You cannot watch TV and find.
It is, man? It just dawned on me. Something dawned on me. You know why I think it's because fear is immediate. Fear is immediate. When you experience real fear, you need to react to that fear because it's danger.
Also, when there was breaking news on that yesterday, I noticed a very specific difference between the reaction of what was happening. Just because I was sitting with my mom, we're having a coffee. She was watching General Hospital, so we're joking around, and I'm like, "Oh shoot, Jason's back. This character's been off the show for like X number of years, or whatever."
Look at you.
So the news, chimes in and they're like, and we'll be in at 5:00. We'll see you then. They have their news voice. But then as soon as like the breaking thing happened, they're like, this just in. They totally break out of that. So it's almost like this faux excitement for the stuff that's actually good and fun, because they're like, I gotta try to excite you. But then when the real shit happens, because we are actually engaged in that and we see, oh my God, okay, this person's not the character now. Yeah. So for some reason, in a sick way, we get more engaged with fear than we do with happiness.
I completely agree with that. And you had also said, fear is an immediate thing. And I've seen personally that kindness can be an immediate thing, too.
I think so.
You can really shock the hell out of somebody by just looking them in the eye and saying, you don't even need words, just offering them something. It could be an apple to a homeless guy. It could just be a smile to somebody.
I agree, but my point is that if he's watching the news and they're talking about, a parade that's scheduled to happen on Thursday in Brooklyn, juxtaposed with there's a guy running people over and screaming at shit and shooting people, that strikes a chord for you to react, to protect, because it's like fear brings on that fight or flight thing. Yep. And that's what they're playing on.
Of course.
Right?
It's going to sell.
So when I hear Trump, our fucking president, come on and say, the reason why this happened is because we didn't have the right thing, and then millions of people go, fuck, he's right. They get fear drives their fucking the narrative.
I don't want to venture into
not
his
politically speaking. I'm talking
about.
No,
I agree with you, but
but I mean just the way the brain works. The human the narrative becomes fear.
Yeah.
Right? And it's interesting to me to watch it all play out. It's like a crazy
Well, it's
fucking
also-
movie happening.
It's also about the people who want to craft that fear into an agenda.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the
Definitely.
Electricity is a force. Fear is a force. Some people know how to channel electricity so that the lights come on and the microphones work and the computer's working. Some people in our society, and it has ever been thus, are exceptionally good at channeling fear. And they can use that fear to turn on certain instruments in society that will move the overall ship of society in one direction or the other. That does not mean that they are correct. That does not mean that that's necessarily a narrative that I want to buy into. It doesn't mean that the narrative is real.
Because you're dissecting the information, Damon. A lot of people don't take the time to dissect the information.
Well, that's their choice.
Right.
Well, there are a lot of things in life that exist that aren't real, like race.
Sure.
Race exists. It's not actually real, but it exists.
It exists, but it's not real.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's true.
So
fear,
Dissect that for a
worry,
second, right?
Worry, as a friend of mine likes to say, where is it? Can you point to it?
Mm.
A lot of people, and, we've all been there, spend their whole lives or maybe a whole day worrying about something or other. They might not even be conscious that they're worrying about it, but the worry is there. Where is it? Can you point to your worry? Can you point to... No,
Right.
it is entirely in your mind. It is entirely
it is a completely
in your
made
mind.
up thing.
And it's
Yeah.
this little drummer, however you want to choose to, Vivekananda, the Indian sage, said it's like a little monkey in your mind, right? A little chattering monkey. Just constantly
I love
in there.
that, I
Just
love that.
a Little monkey.
Who said that? What was the guy?
Monkey mind?
Vivekananda.
Oh, Vivekanandam, yeah.
And-
Vivekanandam?
Sure.
Like, close enough.
But, it's like, are you going to follow the monkey? Or
Yeah.
are you going to, say, I get it, there's a monkey in my mind. And right now he's, playing a really loud drum beat. And he's incredibly pissed off for some reason. But am I that monkey? Or am I just kind of separate from the monkey, and can I separate myself from the monkey?
Can I own my own thoughts?
Can I own my own thoughts?
I want to go back
absolutely.
to something you said before because it was interesting to me. I've been thinking about it. When you talked about how people that do crazy shit are justified in their brain, it reminded me that you also look at you guys look at the world through an actor's lens, and I always think that an actor that's studying his craft, I guess, is, I heard Bryan Cranston say once that he played this, crazy guy, and he was talking about how that guy was not evil. He believed he was justified.
Of course.
Like Hitler believed he was right.
Of course.
He believed he was justified. How I can't fucking conceive how he would think that, right? But
Well, your job as an actor, and if I'm speaking for you, please tell me.
Please go ahead.
Otherwise, is not to judge the person that you're playing. Your job is to fulfill that role. Your job, the reason they hire you is so that you can step into that and embody for the entire human race, or at least your audience, why this person is who he is, and in a certain way to fulfill that role in the story. If we were to judge everything, nobody would ever play the villain parts. But
or they do it poorly.
or they do it poorly.
Right.
You'd make a
It'd be like a
caricature.
Snidely Whiplash style
Right,
of
exactly.
like, man, I'm gonna tie you to the railroad tracks, evil woman.
Yeah, I'm gonna blow up this building. See?
You would generate.
Wait,
you-
but those movies exist, though.
yeah, they do.
That's
but,
before he wrote the book on acting.
But those people we naturally we see them on the screen or the stage, and of course we just turn off from them because we know they're caricatures.
Yeah.
They're not real. The actor has not invested reality in them.
Sure.
Whereas in life, as we well know, the really really bad people are very human. You see.
Yeah.
And it's a very brave thing, I think, for actors to take on that responsibility and say, I'll go into this dark place. You see, because it's really not that dark at all, and it's important that people see this
Yeah.
as it is.
What motivates him?
It's very difficult to have that type of conversation to talk about those things, because you are, it feels super uncomfortable.
It comes from a deeply personal place.
Yeah,
it comes from a deeply
I
personal
thought of that
place.
because we were talking about the role you're going to be playing in our friend in Buffalo.
It's a equity showcase of Disgraced.
I don't know that.
I don't want to talk too much about it because I'm not supposed to say anything.
Well, it was written
yet,
by
but-
Chuck Wildenstein
No.
and Hadley Brockenoff.
Well, it has to do. The main character is a Muslim American
Terrorist.
who is about to
Terrorist?
He's
Is he a terrorist?
No,
Well, you
but-
said Muslim.
Well, yeah, there
But
you
that's
go.
terrorist, though, right?
Well, you're right. Yeah,
All right.
I guess
Well, Bruno was talking about bad apples before, so that he basically said Muslims. I think
they don't
is
fall.
what he said.
Well, if he has a beard, then we can really
he's a
know
terrorist.
what's going
no,
on.
but he's a Muslim American lawyer.
Yeah, he's a lawyer. He's very close to becoming partner at his firm, and then he is asked by his nephew to speak on behalf of an imam from a local mosque that is in question for raising funds that might be going to some terrorist organization. So he begrudgingly goes and does this, and then that becomes a big thing, which is like a snowball effect in his life of what
That's
he's
funny.
associated with and how
finds,
he
he finds himself, I would imagine, on the wrong side of what the current set of societal values are.
Yes,
Yeah.
Which is not what he intended, or
Not what he
nor would he
intended,
want.
nor would he probably even. I haven't read the script, but everybody finds themselves in the gray areas, right?
Yeah,
but it also talks about the cultural conditioning that we all deal with. So me being Albanian Muslim, raised in a very traditional household, there are a number of things that happened through my life that I had to navigate and deal with, from relationships outside of the culture or religion. There was a point where it was like, oh, you're going to marry a nice Albanian Muslim girl. And in my 20s, 24 or so, my brain short-circuited because it's like my life that I was living versus the life that I was supposed to, quote-unquote, be living kind of came to a head. And it's like that, in a small way, happened to me. So imagine when that happens in a larger sense where someone's like,
I'm about to make partner in the law firm.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
Jesus, yeah.
And I've been working my whole life toward this.
But then that happens.
And
I mean, that's
all
probably could
face
be
it.
the motivation of things that and it's tough to even have that conversation because some people get to the point, and that's my awkwardness, kind of prefacing, justifying it in the moment. But like people say, "Oh, how dare you even think like there's no reason for people to have some motivation or justification for doing this thing?" It's like no, but put yourself in the shoes of someone that, let's say your family was killed. Or a child of yours was killed, a nephew, a niece. I know for me, automatically, I'm like starting to sweat because when I mention nephew or niece, it's very important to me. So I start to think then, what if somebody had that happen to them? And then they were like, the rest of my life is going to be dedicated to revenge.
This is how fanaticism
And
of any type starts.
there you go.
And it's
Yeah.
not just religious fanaticism. It could be fanaticism about sports, for crying. Any
and
type of fanaticism starts with people refusing to look at the other side of the coin. And it's only when we look at the other side of the coin, first of all, admit that it exists. It has to. And second of all, kind of, what's the old adage? You walk a mile in another person's shoes, It's very easy to sit there and judge and say, well, I'm right and you're wrong. But
What's at the heart of it?
Well, if you want to go from a biblical perspective, or a philosophical, judge not lest ye be judged. In other words, and that's also karma. There's an Eastern tradition of that if you're going to put something out there, guess what's going to come back and bite you in the ass?
Right.
You see, that's the way. That's almost like
It's gonna come back.
that's physics, basically.
Yeah, it's the energy you put out is
It's
what you
whatever,
get in.
Yeah. If you put out rage, you're going to get that back
You're
because
gonna
the
get
world
rage back.
becomes a reflection of what you're putting out there.
Right.
If you put out anything, you will suddenly see, at least in my limited experience, that the world begins to reflect that in ways subtle and not so subtle. So it's a very good idea, I think, to just kind of ask yourself, what am I putting out there? What do I want to see returned to me? right? The golden rule, if you don't want to go religious or philosophical, it's just common sense. Do unto others as you would have done unto you.
Yep.
Right?
Do good things happen.
Generally speaking, yes. I think the problem is people say, well, where's my Maserati? And it's like, well, you know, I get that you want that, you know, but that's not kind of the point. You're not opening yourself up to the real gift, which might be something else that comes back to you that's not manifesting in that particular form. But, you know, if you put out love, and not romantic, you know, I mean,
love.
Just attention. Compassion.
Understanding.
A little bit of understanding, a lot of humor. Humor is a great thing because I think the more you put it out there, the more it's a frequency, it's a wavelength. People jump on.
Yeah, that's right.
Because and it makes everybody feel good.
Yes.
When properly handled.
Why'd you look at me when you said that? I don't understand.
Well, you know,
because he listens to the show.
Well, no, I mean, you guys walk a really nice line, I think.
Yeah, we do it. Comedy is the ultimate existence. Like that's what makes.
How
us,
many species on this planet laugh?
I don't know.
I think dolphins laugh.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the apes are, you know, the higher apes laugh.
I think Mexicans. See what I'm saying? That's comedy, Dave. See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? Just
your first lesson's free, baby.
I just threw 3 words out there and changed it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, baby.
Right.
Now teach me some acting shit, bro.
As you're saying, he's like, right.
He's in pain.
Right. Why am I here?
The intellectual side of his brain is like, I can't believe I came down all this way to let this fucking idiot say Mexicans too. Yep.
Yeah.
Here I am.
Yeah, well, they told me there'd be coffee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there was plenty
And
of
it
that.
wouldn't be Sanka.
It's not
No,
Sanka.
Yeah, it would not be Sanka.
We got you covered.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at you and I'm thinking, here's this kid, this young actor after 9/11 with this recorder, and then you do this, you put that book together, and you know, since that time you've been on CNN, MSNBC, Fox, like you've been all over. You've run this. How did this thing take off? Like you like the commissioner, the 9/11, the head of the chairman.
Yeah.
Thomas Kean.
Kean.
Tom
Kean. Yeah.
Kean.
Kean. Mm-hmm.
Okay. You kind of worked closely with him on this, didn't you? Didn't he?
Yeah, it was a fortuitous connection.
How did it happen?
I went to undergrad at Drew University in northern New Jersey, and Tom happened to be, at that time, the president of Drew University. And what I learned then, one of the main things that I learned from that project is, you know, anybody can say no to you. But if you ask, some people will say yes.
They might say yes.
Yeah, a lot of people will say yes.
Well, how to get, you know, it's first of all, the subject matter and the content is gripping.
Like I said, people wanted to talk. So my job was actually made much easier. I just facilitated conversation. That's really all I did.
That's pretty cool.
That's really all I did.
I mean, you're being a little humble about it, but it's really a great idea, and you pulled it off tremendously well.
Thank you.
And now, what was in what capacity did he come on?
Tom?
Yeah.
I showed it to him, and I said, you know, Tom is really into 2 things that many people don't really credit him for. He's a former governor of New Jersey. He's a long-time statesman at both the federal and state levels. He's a Republican, but not in the way that we see today. He's very kind of even-handed.
Yep.
People from both sides of the aisle, all sides of the aisle, kind of liked him. He's very into education. And he's a huge fan, not many people know this about him, of theater as an art form.
Yeah.
And history. So these kind of forces all came together, and I kind of showed him the book, and I said, this is what I'm going for here. And he got it. You know, he just got it. You know how you do a piece of work, you show it to somebody, they're going to get it or they're not.
Yeah, he got it.
You know, and if they get it, great.
Struck a chord with him.
If they don't get it, it's still good. It's just not the right person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he got it. And so he, you know, I asked him if he would write a foreword to it, and he said, yeah.
He wrote the
and
foreword.
he's by the way, he's always been a huge champion of the whole project, for which I am really, really grateful, because it helps to have somebody like that on your side who's going to open a few doors.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I understand your hesitation to take that much credit for it. I get that, because you're telling other people's stories and it's their stories.
Man, I did not I was not in the towers. Right. I did not pull anybody out. I did not save anybody's life. Yeah. So I'm not being humble. I'm being real with you. Yeah. All I did was walk around, talk to people, and listen to people. That I'd do that any day of the week compared to what some of those people went through.
Without question.
So
No,
let's
in comparison
keep it
to that, yeah.
just keep it in perspective.
Yeah,
here.
definitely. But to me, it's a huge service to the people that were there and the people that lost their lives because.
You know what I think? Thank you. I have a son. He's 5.
Yeah.
The questions I get now are, why did Darth Vader turn bad? That's the level of philosophical discussion I have with a 5-year-old son. He's a very bright kid, and he's really engaged.
I have no answer for you, son.
Well, we watched
right?
the movies the other night. He didn't trust that he was loved.
Yeah.
You watch those movies, like this woman loved him desperately, whatever the mother's name was, Padme, I guess. But he didn't trust that. And he had a lot of rage. He wouldn't let himself, he always looked to the bad. The Sand People killed my mom, so the world is bad, and so I'm going to slaughter them. He put himself in jeopardy, and I would dare to say spiritual jeopardy, right? Because he didn't trust in the love and the good. He trusted in the dark side, right? So these are the conversations that I'm having with the 5-year-old. Those conversations have changed every year, sometimes on a month-to-month basis, because his mind is growing, right? If you have kids, you see this, right?
I have them.
There's going to come a time, because this event is not going away. It has essentially altered, they call it the post-9/11 world for a reason.
Yeah.
It has altered the entire course of our history of Western civilization and Middle Eastern and Eastern.
Yeah,
the
it
whole
did,
world.
it did change the psyche of a country and the world.
Yeah, for better or for worse.
Yep.
Worse. It's shifting it into a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to have questions someday. And what am I going to say to the boy? Yeah. I might be able to say to him, here's a book of other people who you really should listen to because they were there. This is not a video recording. These are their words. This is their experience. If you read this, maybe it'll answer a few questions for you. I mean, what else are we here for but to have our questions answered,
You're like a modern-day scribe in that moment where you kind of documented those things because I think it's very important to document it close to the time when it happens because it's more accurate.
Yeah, that's
and
my
then
point.
people's brains and thought process don't have a chance to mold the idea of what happened.
Memory is a very plastic thing.
Yes,
Memory
because
is a
I'm sure if
remarkably
you were to
plastic thing.
interview one of those people again, maybe even asking the same question, you may get a different answer.
More
but
than
not
likely,
intentionally,
No,
but
no, no,
it
no,
just
no,
is one of those
absolutely.
things that happens to the
Absolutely.
mind and memory.
Yes, that's exactly it. It is not intentional. It's just what we do as human beings. I mean, oh God, who was I reading the other day who said it's not what happened? Oh, it was Gabriel Garcia Marquez, great Colombian writer. He said, what happened to you is not important. What's important is what you remember about it and how you feel about it.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, that's it, right?
That's
Because
it.
the past. Where is the past? Can you point to it? Yeah. No, it's not here. The only thing that ever happens is now. Now. That's it. Yeah. All these things that we carry around that we think is a future, that's an anticipation. It's not real. You see, good or bad, whether you're thinking about the future, whatever you're thinking about the future, it's not real. It's not there. You can't touch it. There's nothing that you can really actualize about it. Same thing with the past. There's no way to go back to it. It's just who we allow ourselves to be in the moment that is very real and can affect not only our lives but other people's lives. Now, if you've had some horrendous experiences in your life, it can be very difficult to let go of those experiences. I fully understand that, I think. But therein lies the work that we all have before us, is to say, who do I want to be in this moment right now? This moment right now. How do I want to move about in this moment so that I'll feel good about that? And once you kind of figure that out for yourself, and it's an ongoing process, I think, for everyone, things start to get a little clearer.
It's really well said.
What did I say?
I don't know. Afrem?
If you put it in a diagram, it's like, what do you build your stamina towards? And if you look at, it's like we emotionally skip leg day all the time
in your workout, yeah,
So like the upper,
some smart motherfuckers, though, I gotta be honest.
the upper half is like, oh yeah, like when things get me enraged, I'm gonna lift some. But then like the actual thing that structurally holds up everything.
Is
It's like,
anemic.
we're just gonna.
It's anemic.
So basically,
Let
you're
that
saying
slide.
we're all like me from 1987. Is that what this is? The 1987 TJ rookie card is
like,
us.
Put down the
You
power
got a
bar.
really tight shirt, but why are you wearing those super baggy jogging pants right
Colorful
now?
1980s jogging
Yeah.
pants. All right, listen. So
There we go.
the book, Tower Stories.
Yeah.
When does this start to gain a little bit of traction? And did you care about it gaining traction? And I know,
You always
it's
care.
yeah.
But it finds its own life, and it is what it is. I mean, I just adapted. I ran a hatch fund campaign, which is kind of like
Like a GoFundMe
yeah,
type of
kind
thing.
of. But the nice thing about them is they give people tax write-offs
Nice.
because they say, well, you're contributing to a good cause, so the least we can do is give you a tax donation for it. But I raised a pretty significant amount of money to allow me to go back inside the book and adapt it for the stage. Because, when you're an actor, you kind of see things through a certain lens, right? These words are on the page, but they're also meant to be spoken. When you hear a live human being speaking these things in a room, you realize that it's not an academic exercise. You see, this was a real person who was up in that tower. This is a real person who dropped everything to fly in from Oregon. Theater is powerful. It goes so far back in time. It's a part of who we are.
Yeah, I talked a little bit with Charles about that and how the idea is that cavemen used to come back from the hunt to describe what happened.
I think that's
and
right.
that's really where we think acting came from.
Of course.
Storytelling, right?
Right. And it's built upon survival.
Yeah.
And it's built upon the sharing of knowledge. Right. And it's built upon entertainment to a certain way, because how else are you going to capture people's attention span than by entertaining them? So that aspect creeps into there. But it is, nowadays I think we've taken for granted that the ultimate carrier signal has to be the, Verizon LTE.
Yeah.
Yes, my download rates are faster.
Yeah,
However,
right.
in human communication, which precedes all of these things, theater and those things which are theatrical are the ultimate conveyance signal for information.
Right. And so for you, that was a natural progression to bring it to the stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you have people coming in from all over the country. I walk by the 9/11 Memorial and Museum a lot, and it is filled with people from all over the country and all over the world who want to participate in some way, to either pay their respects or to feel that they have stood on this ground, and to let that resonate with them in some way. That's a very powerful communal force, and I don't think there's anything particularly negative about it.
There's a lot of people that don't like it, right? Like they feel like they're treating it like a tourist attraction.
And there's an argument to be said for that.
There's an argument to be made for that.
Don't get me wrong. There's an argument to be made for that. It just like the show. It's a tight line to walk.
It's a tight line to walk.
You know what I mean? There's respect on one side, and
it depends on what mood you catch me in. If I drive by that, or if I'm in the area. Sometimes I'll think about my friend. I had a lot of friends at 9/11. I had quite a few. One of my best friends in the world was in there. And sometimes I'll think about it and I'll go, well, they all came to see Mikey. They all came to see Mikey, which is good. And then sometimes I'm thinking, get the fuck away from there. It depends on the mood you catch me in.
There's also levels of respect. I mean, there's people there's a website dedicated to kind of, I guess, shaming people who are like at Auschwitz doing selfies.
Well, if you're acting like a retard with your little stupid
this
kissy
kind of
faces,
thing, they're duck-facing selfie, snapping a shot in the background, and
that's
it's like,
bad.
You're not actually connected at all.
Right. You're not letting yourself. You're not opening yourself up to what this place is about.
Right.
Yeah, and because that would be the last thing you wanted. You would actually want to be.
And that upsets me.
You would want to expose yourself to. Yeah,
but that's the fault of something entirely different, which is a totally other episode.
I mean, it's
no, that's a whole nother.
It's offensive, man. Even though they are only Jews, it's still offensive. Right. So when you started with the play,
moving forward,
moving on.
Every once in a while, he'll throw in a plot point.
Yeah,
right. But in all seriousness,
look at his face. voice. You're laughing, motherfucker. Yeah, you can laugh. It's okay.
No, but here's
He loves it, David.
But
You can
for
throw
real,
something at me at
here's
any
the,
time, any given point in time.
Here's the
Sanka.
confusing. Here's the confusing thing. They also have beards.
Yeah,
So sometimes
it's true.
I don't know what I'm looking at.
It's true.
L'chaim alaikum.
It's confusing.
What do you
They're
say?
like,
L'chaim alaikum?
There's
Alaikum
wait,
alaikum?
here we go. Salamu alaikum, but then there's also shalom alaikum.
Uh-huh.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but now there's also,
It's real.
dude, what are we doing tonight?
Bro,
Because those guys look like that too.
bro. Williamsburg, bro.
Right.
Salam, bro.
Right.
Well, dude, I'm really
All right.
interested in the play. How long after the book came out? How do you, I guess I'm calling it a play. Is it?
It's a play.
specifically.
Yeah, no, it's a
you
play.
know.
Yeah, it's done as much as anything is ever done. You know, because
Yeah.
when you get into production, things change.
And you directed it?
No. No. I'm too close to it.
Yeah, too close to
no,
it.
I got a very, very dear friend of mine. I asked her if she would participate in it. Amy Saltz. She's directed on Broadway. She's very bright.
Yeah.
And so Amy she essentially helped me develop the thing, you know, and
That's so
by
cool.
well, she does what any good theatrical mind does, and she asks a lot of questions. Well, what did you intend this to be about? And I'd be like, you know, and she's like, I think you might want to think about that.
I meant to ask you that. What did you intend this to be about? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you know,
Because I'm a good interviewer, bro.
you're doing great.
I think I am.
Yeah. For
Wait.
for a guy from
within for a fat guy from Brooklyn, right? Wait till the next 3 minutes when my brain goes to the horrible joke that I don't know is about to happen.
It'll
come.
go there.
It'll be there.
Yeah, and then we'll cut to Sanka commercial.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we're definitely.
Have we done anything with
Bruno's-
non-dairy creamer? Is there anything that we could?
We don't even
could-
mess
we
up.
could work
No,
with it.
Bruno, I disappointed Bruno heavily without having no creamer, no sugar.
Yeah, no creamer.
That's-
And the milk that we did have looked like creamer, but no.
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
It's just the expiration date was October 16th, and it's the November 1st today.
of 2014.
Yeah.
How did she pull the play off? Real quick, how did she pull the play off? Was it? How do you do it? What do you do?
Well, the first we did a simple reading of it actually at Esper Studios, and the cast is 8.
Billy Esper, good friend of mine.
Billy Esper,
Yeah.
right? And we kept it as simple as possible. The way the play is designed, you can do it if you want with video screens showing whatever you want, with music, with lights, with cues. I wrote it so that if a big theatrical production wants to take it in whatever direction they want, they can. My only note was, please keep it tasteful. The accentuation has to be on the voices. I want to hear these people.
Mhm.
They have the story. We
Yeah.
see video all the time.
Yeah.
It would be overkill.
Yeah, don't have Lady Gaga dancers in the background.
Well, some performances
Would
might
want
want
that,
to go
right.
into
Yeah.
a highly technical kind of spectacle, and I think that would be a disservice.
and
But you could also do it with just people just sitting here as we are with
Yeah.
music stands. Here's your script. You don't even have to be off book. You could just read it to people.
how do
I
you
think
write
that's a
something
big
like that?
that's a big issue with theater too. It becomes this like with all the advent and what you were talking about the LTE and being on your phone and you can go to YouTube and watch all these things. Or
Yeah.
It's like what then? So theater now
So,
has
what
to
is
be
the place
done.
of theater?
It has to be done in such a way that it actually is compelling.
Yeah.
It has to bring back that element of the
Yeah.
caveman coming back. Why was everyone enthralled? Because this was information that they were really getting in the moment.
Right.
Whereas there's sometimes you'll go to theater and you just
All right.
it can be very self-serving.
Or it bows
Ah.
to, like you see people texting on stage and behind them the screen comes up and you can see what they're texting. So there's this weird melange of, technology with the theatrical experience. And why go to the theater if you're going to have that?
Wow.
Yeah,
that's pretty.
It's these are interesting arguments
That's
to have.
interesting,
And
yeah.
I don't think there's any answer to it. It's just, it's really a question of aesthetic. It's really a question of what you prefer.
Yeah. How do you write that play based on this book? I read the book. That sounds so difficult to me to try and construct that.
Yeah. Dead air.
Fine. Find it.
Yeah, I mean that's
I'm with you, bro.
That's the process. Find it was the process.
Yeah.
Was like, what am I doing?
What am I doing?
I knew, and this is kind of the way I do everything these days, which can feel a bit like tightrope walking. But at the end of the day, sometimes something good happens. You don't really know how you're going to do it. Everything's different, I every project I take on anymore, I just know well, that worked last time, but it's not going to work for this one, you know? So it's about finding the point of attack, the doorway. Doorway is probably a better way of saying it. That entry point that says, this could be done this way if only you choose to walk through the door and realize you are in undiscovered country here.
Yeah.
It's not going to be formulaic, first 5 minutes teaser, you know, like television writing.
It can't
sometimes.
be. Yeah, it can't be.
It's going to be, you choose to walk through this door, kind of like the way you said you built this studio. You had an idea.
Yeah.
And then you followed it. And sometimes the idea would say, hey, I need a big table. It's going to be an octagon. And you're like, is it? Okay.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. Well, now we need 6 microphones.
Okay.
And 2 empty
You know,
spaces.
and so you start jotting down notes, and then you find yourself going down to B&H, and you find yourself, you know, like
Yep.
you follow it.
Yes.
You follow the project.
Same principle.
Yeah, it is. It's the creative principle, I think. And that is, some people call it the muse. You know, there is some force, your creativity, your imagination, whatever it is, that is going to answer these questions for you. But you have to kind of make yourself up. You have to apprentice yourself to it.
Yeah.
And you have to say, what are you telling me today? What am I know what I did yesterday, and now I'm at this, like Hemingway used to just stop in the middle of a sentence, apparently when he was writing, and go off and get drunk, which is another thing. But
that was his thing.
well,
that was his process.
He always knew that if he left a cliffhanger in that sentence, he would have to come back the next day and say, how does this end?
He would force himself to do it.
And so
And find it.
the vacuum, to go back to would be filled.
Yeah.
You know, something's going to come to him.
So what started materializing for you? Like, that's a great way to describe it, by the way. You know what it feels like, Bruno, when you and I used to write our screenplays together? Mm-hmm. We used to sit down with an idea.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and all of them are goofy and stupid and silly, but there was always meaning and stuff behind it. But we would always find that way. We didn't know. You don't know. But when you get it, when you hit a groove, you just know it's good.
Correct.
You just know it's right because it feels right.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Right? You know, a very, very wise friend of mine keeps telling me, the world doesn't really matter so much. It's how you feel about it that matters.
Yeah.
Like people always say, I want the Maserati, right? And it's like, you really don't want the Maserati. What you want is you want that feeling.
You
that
want
the
that
Maserati
emotion
gives
that
you.
comes
Yeah,
with what you think a Maserati might bring you.
Because we don't really, the world is completely experienced within us. Right, like even we think we're hearing each other
right this
right
second.
now.
Yeah, right.
We think we're hearing each other right now. That's just sound waves coming through these little things, these little receivers we call ears. We're not actually hearing anything. We think we're hearing things. You see?
Yeah.
So
all right, I'm leaving. This is getting too right.
Well, I think
it's fucking brilliant.
I think it's important to remember
it's
because
brilliant.
Because if you control your field, not control. That's a strange word. I went right back to Darth Vader. But if you work with your feelings and you listen to your feelings, right, and your feeling you just said told you, hey, this is good, this is right, this makes me laugh, this is what it feels right for this screenplay. Follow it.
Follow it.
Follow it.
Follow it and let it guide you. What was
Yes.
it? What was it specifically for the play that?
How did I find the door?
Yeah, what was the door? How did it?
The door for me was, and I ran away from this for a very, very long time, and there were some drafts that just did not work. I finally ended up saying, this whole book came about because one guy, who happened to be me, went around interviewing people. So there should be a guy who's the narrator of this thing, who's just invested in, he just comes right out and says, hi, I'm the guy who went around and interviewed people. And I shied away from that because I don't want in any way the focus, like I said to you earlier, I don't want the focus to be on me.
Of course you don't.
But then I realized it's not on me. It's on this guy who's pretending to be me, right? It's on an actor.
But that guy was the through line.
He became a carrier signal because when a story needs a beginning and a middle and an end, for lack of a better, to simplify things, right? It needs a way for people to get into the story and to get out of it. Grossly oversimplifying, but that's kind of what you need. This character could say, you all know what happened. Any history book can tell you what happened. What you probably don't know is some of this other stuff. And the reason that I can present it to you is, lights up on the guy behind him. Here's a person I'm about to interview. You see, and he just walks over and starts interviewing you. So you can actually see the process taking place. But then the writer, this narrator, fades away because really he's not that important anyway. He's just
He's not.
He's the stage of the rocket that just gets.
I agree, and I see how aware
you
you are of that and how sacred it is to you. And I think during that process, you probably were very hesitant to include that, maybe because of that reason.
Yeah, I hated it.
Yeah.
At first, because again, it's not my story.
Right.
It's not my story.
right,
But
right.
I did strike a bargain with myself to say, I can use this character as that first stage of the rocket that launches the capsule into the air, and then the rocket falls away, and you're still in the capsule. You see, it served its purpose, and it's just not really necessary anymore. Thank you for what you did.
It was a utility of the. Yeah,
it was the utility of the moment,
right?
And it's very valuable.
A satellite that just basically pulls in the story.
Yes,
The story exists upon itself, but that satellite or receiver pulled it in.
It's the frame for the picture.
And then so then the play. Oh, I got it. So now then the people would come and do excerpts, or how did you write? Did you keep it specifically to the words, or?
Yeah, well, I had to choose. Again, there's
I know
like 48 people in the book or something.
I know.
You know,
it's so amazing to me.
I've never had a greater appreciation for how, you know, they say that history is written by the victors, right? All interpretations are, all art is about selecting and arranging, right?
Yeah.
And so if an artist says the event is about this, well, it's really just how you chose to, the information you chose to select and how you chose to arrange
what you
it.
chose to select is even more part of it than right.
It's not the truth,
right?
in terms of the big.
It's yes.
It's not everything.
Yeah.
That's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
But it's what the artist chose to select and arrange to try and highlight different aspects of things. So I went through the voices that I had before me and the text, and I said, well, what 8, because I had to keep the cast a certain size, otherwise I would have had 48 people on stage. It just can't be done. But who are the people that I can pull out that are going to exemplify different perspectives, and hopefully conflicting perspectives? Because 9/11 is like any other event. Different people have very different interpretations of it. And if we all get on one bandwagon and say, oh, you know, it should never have happened, and, you know, the nation should go in this, I'm not interested in that at all. I want to hear whatever the difference is.
Yeah, because there's so many layers within
So many layers.
Everyday existence, and specifically something like this that
Yeah,
it's a disservice to look at it in any other way.
I couldn't agree more. So I tried to choose the 8 voices. I ended up choosing 8. At first I chose 15, and then it was 10, and then it was an agonizing process of, you know, trying to get it down.
I can't imagine.
Down.
I can't imagine.
Microcosm, bro.
Microcosm. Yeah.
And so we ended up with what we have. And I feel really good about it, too.
Do you still...
The 9/11 Memorial and Museum has it right now.
Oh, really?
And they were gracious enough to say they'd take a look at it because they want to do some programming of a theatrical type. They just did a reading of a Sophocles play, I know, that kind of exemplified certain sentiments that they want to put forward. So, yeah, I'm very gratified that organizations like that are taking a look at it. Obviously, I'd like to see it there.
Yeah, I would love to see it.
Because I think that's the most fitting venue for the material.
It's good to know that there's voices like his out there, you know. It makes me feel like there's a little bit of hope for us, you know.
I think there's a lot of
Ladies and
hope
gentlemen.
for us.
There's a lot. I think one thing that I've noticed among artists is not taking the time to do things like a podcast or even a small video. Like, I think social media now is getting to a point where people are realizing, hey, I can do a small video and it actually does have effect.
Mm-hmm.
You're adding to the collective conscious in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes a difference. So someone like Damon, even, you know, yourself, TJ, like that adds to the collective conscious. So I think more people need to do it, more artists. And we tend to be, I mean, we'll sometimes be self-conscious or be like, do a take of something, be like, oh, I don't know if I should post it or I should. But it's like we need to, I think, get more, be putting that out more, thoughtful ideas.
What I'm hearing you say, if I can interpret it in my own way, is that we have all these avenues with us right now, due to technology mostly, that are incredibly powerful. I mean, incredibly powerful. Look at how Twitter has shaped revolutions in different countries. Twitter, you know, I mean, it's Twitter.
It's Twitter.
You know, some people use it to photograph their lunch and say, I just ate this. And some people are bringing down governments with it. It's like...
It's powerful,
It is incredibly powerful.
I think we need, as artists, we need to embrace that. You know, as artists, like there's also this part of me that's like, oh, artists, piece of shit for even considering yourself an artist. But
Yeah, but it's okay.
I wish you'd let that go.
Yeah,
because
I know. I'm
its,
working on that.
At its core, an artist is, I would dare to say, you can't be an artist without being a humanist. Meaning that you can't be an artist
Right.
without looking at any person
Absolutely, Damon.
and saying, if I don't understand you, I'd still like to try. And if we have a humanist perspective on everything that we do, we'll still go wrong. It's just the way the game works, but we'll stumble in the right direction.
That's a very Brooklyn thing you just did, friend, because I used to do it. I'm starting to accept it now. I'm almost 50, and I'm accepting it, even though I knew it the whole time. You call yourself an artist. For lack of a better word, like artist, what are we? We lost a really good friend of ours. His name is Roger Majkowski.
Okay.
Raging genius, incredibly talented, like overwhelmingly, amazingly brilliant man. Drank himself to death, drugs, the whole 9 yards. We couldn't get him to stop. But he was a dear friend of ours. I did a movie with him called The Sound. And prior to that, he did a movie called Passing Stones. And he would do short films and write and direct. And he was an artist, you know? And two things happened to me when you were talking. I was in such pain. It was only a few days ago. I was in such pain over losing him. Pain that I just couldn't even process why. Like, I saw this coming. It was like leaving Las Vegas. The guy was going to die. You just knew it was going to happen, whether it was a year, 10 years, right? Bruno, the guy was just off the hinges and he was gone. We tried to save him, interventions, the whole 9 yards. But he was like my brother, right? So I'm saying, why? And somehow, some way, I wound up in front of my computer and I just started typing and typing and typing. And it was 4 pages about my relationship with him. And it was a dialogue in there. It was like a short fucking film almost, right? And
you made something out of it.
I did. I made something out of it. Part of that dialogue that I had with him, and I think you guys saw it, I posted it on Facebook. The first thing I did was send it to his brother and say, I have to share that. I don't know what to do with this. And he said, you have to post this immediately. So I got the blessing from him first. But the first thought I had was my conversation with him as we were sitting there editing. And to him and to me, and like, I'm a working class guy from Brooklyn who found myself with these people who were like-minded, like Purchase SUNY graduates that are real, in my opinion, real actors, real writers. These guys are the real deal. And in that soliloquy, I guess I would call it, of Roger's life, I remembered a conversation where he said, you're a freak. You're one of us. Don't try to fight it. You're fucked in the brain, and I love you.
And I love you. Yeah, and I love you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, all right, because we see the world in a different way.
But in the same way as well.
In the same way, and simultaneously, I'm wondering if I should post it. I'm self-conscious about it, like that.
Well, I acknowledge that those moments hit me, and I tried every time it does. I try to say it out loud real quick because, for me, it's a reminder that I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't have to. I can just say, as an artist. But there's that little seed of the thing.
It's
like,
that Brooklyn
it's not
thing.
for you to say you're an artist.
Right.
It's if somebody sees it and they interpret it as art, and if it's at its highest level, it's perceived as this beautiful thing. Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation.
I say it's a Brooklyn thing because you know what happens with us in our neighborhood. Bruno thinks he's a big shot. He's making movies. He's gonna be a big shot. TJ thinks he's a big shot. He thinks he's Howard Stern.
The little undercuts.
He thinks he's Howard Stern.
So what do you want to invest in? I mean, we're all going to be right about something. That's just the way life works, right? So do you want to be their version of right, which is you're not worth anything?
Absolutely.
Or do you want to be your version of right, which is
Absolutely
I'm
right.
a big shot, because I don't get that off you. What I'm getting off of you is I love what I do.
Yeah.
I really
That's
love
what I
what
want
I
to
do.
invest in.
I just totally love what I do.
That's
why I keep coming to work every day.
Yeah.
And sometimes the money flows in and sometimes good things happen, but that even is totally irrelevant because really I just want to keep doing what I'm doing.
Right, Dan, what did you say? What do you want to be right about?
What do you want to be right
You
about?
can choose what you're right about.
Well, we're all going to be right about something. At the end of the day, it's like our subconscious or life or whatever says to you, you're right. It's like God, sorry to go here, but has only one word, yes.
The power of yes, man.
So, yeah, I mean, there really is no other word that the universe, God, call it whatever you will, has. So if you say, God, I need a lot of money and I'm not worth anything, God will say, yes, you're right. You're not worth anything. You do need a lot of money. You have nothing.
Yeah.
So it's like, but if you say something like, I really love what I do, and it's growing, and it's fantastic, and I just love to keep putting myself out there. God will say, yeah, that's true.
You're going to get more of that.
You're going to get more of that.
That train of thought takes practice, it seems to me.
It takes, yes, I think it takes practice.
And awareness.
But the awareness is the better
Conviction.
word. And conviction. But, you kind of have to, when you start realizing the power of your own thoughts, at least this is my experience, so I can speak from it, you're met with that uncomfortable situation where you realize, oh shit, I've been carrying this basket of crap around with me for X number of years. And then you're like, you got to open that basket up, and there are all sorts of things in there, good, bad, ugly, dark, strange, and you got to start picking them out one by one and saying, what is this? Where did it come from? Is it real? Do I want to keep it? Can I let it go?
Right.
If I let it go, am I willing to deal with those consequences? Because there are sometimes consequences, but usually it's still the right way to go. It's that moment of diving into who you are and owning it.
Yeah, and owning it.
And I don't know what else life is for if not for that.
Nothing else. There's nothing else.
I also think that the more we dive into our own stuff, and to use your word, Bruno, forgive it, the better off. It's a very selfish endeavor because it does feel great. But selfish is not bad, because the better I feel, the better I am in a position to help the people I love and the people I've just meet.
Compass needle.
Listen, what do they tell you?
Compass needle.
What do they tell you on the plane? If something happens and you're in danger, what do?
You put
The mask comes
on
down
yourself first.
Who does the mask go on, right?
Yeah, well,
You can't help somebody else if you can't help yourself
you
first.
gotta put the mask on.
That's why I
yourself
need your mask as well, bro, as a backup.
I'm gonna totally help you.
I'm gonna help
just
you,
in
but I
case
just
I
need
need that
backup.
second mask.
Well, when I have friends who have been ocean lifeguards, and what they teach
His
them
face.
is that you swim out, you see somebody struggling, right? They're caught in a riptide, they're freaking out. Your job is to swim out there and save them. Many times, what happens is that person is so beside themselves that they will cling on to you and pull you under. It's been known to happen.
Yeah.
So now you got two dead people, right? Where you might have had one. So what they teach in some schools of lifeguarding, or so I've heard, is that there's a very good technique for dealing with this. When you swim out to this person, if they've demonstrated that they're not capable of helping you help themselves to get back in, you hit them hard.
Punch them.
Knock them out if you have to.
So that you could
drag
save
them back
Save
in.
them from themselves.
And apologize later.
Yeah.
Now, this can be overblown, so I don't want to put too much weight on this analogy, but the point is, yes, we cannot help anybody else until we help ourselves.
Yeah.
It's like I know a woman, she works with beleaguered wives, They got 4 kids, they got a husband, they're holding the whole family together, they're cooking, they're cleaning, they're getting everybody out to school, they're holding down the PTA meetings, and then at the end of the day, they feel empty. Why?
Not taking care of their husbands enough.
They're not taking care of themselves.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say.
It's been my experience that the husband is
See, there it is there.
The husband, there it is. The husband wants her to be happy.
He's a fucking asshole. Bro.
Yeah, sometimes.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, but so they're not you have to come first.
You got to get something back to yourself, or you're not going to be worth anything to anybody.
Yeah,
you have to look after yourself. Selfish is not a bad thing.
That's serving yourself.
It's what empowers us to be of better service to others. Now, this can be, again, grossly inflated, right?
Of course.
Well, I took that money away from that guy because I needed to help him. I wrote a book with a guy who had been one of the founders of the Tiananmen Square movement, for which he was he was repaid by being thrown in prison and beaten and all that sort of thing. And so when we did this book, he had met the Dalai Lama, and the Dalai Lama, of course, is invested in a lot of things, but one of them is, kind of shining a light on human rights abuses, many of which have taken place in China over the pro-democracy movement. So there was kind of...
Tiananmen Square?
Yeah.
You wrote the book?
Well, I did.
With a guy?
With a guy.
You wrote the book
I did
on Democracy in China.
Here again.
You,
No. Here again. No,
you are the
No.
foremost authority on how to change the world.
No.
Damon DiMarco, ladies and gentlemen,
No.
is the best thing that's ever happened to the human race.
No.
Human race.
Okay, thank you for Sanka.
All right.
Yeah, he's
All right,
gonna
listen,
sank us.
If you want to do it, if you must, then tell me about the Chinese guy with the thing. But you're the guy.
No, he's the guy.
Okay,
He's
He's the
the
guy.
guy.
Look at how serious.
No, he was the one in prison. He was the
Listen,
one
nobody on
beaten.
this
He
show
was
is
the
going
one-
to mistaken me for being right over you.
Oh,
Trust
okay,
me when I
good,
tell you.
Good.
They're going to know the babbling retard that you're talking to, including Dalai Lama, who will be joining us next weekend
Dalai
on
Lama and
yoga in Brooklyn. Is that what he does? Yoga, that guy? Is that the guy, the yoga guy?
Yeah, it's yoga for the people.
Yeah.
I think he's
All
the
right,
head
yoga
of
for
it.
the people.
DOLLY LAMA.
has a hell of a downward dog position.
Yeah.
LLAMA. Dalai Lama. Welcome to Dalai Lama Yoga. DOLLY. It's a fucking Italian guy in Brooklyn.
If you can't make it here, we'll pick you up.
Don't worry about it. We got a 24-hour pickup service, otherwise known as Uber. Not the guy with the Home Depot truck. A good guy that will get you here alive.
Zing, zing, zing,
Flowing
zing.
robes.
So
striking.
you're responsible for democracy in China?
Yeah, that was all me.
All right.
Yeah, that
See,
was
there
all
you
me.
go. Now you're getting
It
it.
was all me.
Now you
It
understand
was
how
all
we
me.
operate
Yeah,
here.
Totally.
But
totally.
dude, seriously,
I'm
you wrote
responsible for China.
good for you.
Yeah, I had an idea. And
All right.
I put the whole country on the
I
map.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
At Christmas time,
Yep.
when my kids get all the toys that you and your people make
Yeah,
in China.
a lot of them made in China.
A lot of them. Tell me about the Tiananmen Square book.
King of the segues.
Yeah, and go. How are we on the profundity meter? Are we up there? No. Okay, good.
No, any step towards a high level on that scale is immediately gets chopped
Right,
blocked
chop
from the
down,
bottom.
chop down, chop at the knees, the thighs. Go higher today. Go higher.
I
on
mean,
them.
look, man, we all have to combat profundity because it's one of the most obscene diseases that has struck the human race, and it's really bad.
It's, they have penicillin now.
Profundity.org.
Yeah.
Profundity, that shit, too.
Oh no!
I'm not going to do it. Look, Damon, I'm not going to do it. He's actually pushing himself
See-
away from the fucking octagon.
See, then he
backing out of the
he
octagon.
asks why I have time frames on the show. Because if you don't have time frames on the show, this is what happens.
What happens?
The beast is unleashed.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Count to 5. You'll get a guy who's gonna be like a makeshift Mexican that does some
that's
crazy
no
shit to his
true.
groom.
Well, it is past,
Tiananmen
it is
Square.
past 12 o'clock, so I think the lunch.
Oh, hurrah, you want Tiananmen Square?
Oh, you see?
You want some democracy? Okay, $40, okay? Oh, you know Tiananmen Square? That's so good. You stand in front of a tank, okay? $40. I stand in front of a tank for you? I get run over by a tank? Okay, $40, okay? Damon, tell me about the book. Please tell me about the book. Please pull back up to the octagon.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't lose you that bad.
No,
Please,
no.
trust me, I'm being so good. I'm being so respectful
This
of
is good.
everything.
This is really good.
You're a smart person.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. All right. All right then. So the Tiananmen Square.
So,
I love it.
yeah.
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. I have to interrupt you.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of this, I put his bio up in front of me because I thought I might, reference it, but I hadn't referenced it. And my hand hit the screen, and the first thing I see about him is towards the bottom. It says, in 2012, he initiated the Writing for Public Intellectuals workshop for PhD students in the History and Culture program at Drew University's Casperson Graduate School.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to him. I'm talking to him.
True.
About hookers that get run over by tanks in China.
Well, that's that's why I said
was a
time
joke.
frame.
No, bro.
Yeah.
Book. I go ahead. I had to interrupt with that because that's who we're talking to here.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I did some smart shit too, bro.
What?
Yeah, a lot of smart shit like that, like
Huh?
you did. I'm
Yeah.
similar to you in a lot of ways. In
Yeah.
the stuff that I did.
Yeah. A lot.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'm responsible for the Mean Joe Green jersey.
I love the Mean Joe Green.
All right, do you love it?
Yeah, because I remember the Coke commercials. Remember?
Don't you love it?
Remember the Coke
Yeah.
commercial? Yeah, he would come out. He would come out.
Hey,
the
Mean
field
Joe.
Yeah, right. What was that kid doing in the locker room? I don't.
Well, it's
yeah,
that's
Yeah.
a situation.
It's a situation
That's a
right there.
situation back
That
there.
commercial's not being made.
it's not being made today. No, it's not.
I don't know. Maybe the Catholic Church sponsored that game. So, Tiananmen Square is a place where the Catholic Church was not located
No,
because of the strict rules of governmental communism
I don't think there is.
in China.
I wonder if there is Catholicism in China. I mean, there are Chinese Muslims, right? The Uighurs, they're toward the western edge of the country.
Yeah, they have Catholicism, Muslims, but it's hard to tell them apart because
Beards?
they all look the same now.
Sorry.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that.
Right, guys?
I forgot that one coming.
Oh. So what's the fucking difference? Who's free and who isn't? It doesn't matter, guys. You all look the same.
Y'all.
How do you get in touch with the guy? And how do you do this stuff, man?
Sometimes
what's the
people
connection?
find me. Sometimes the agency that I work with finds them, and sometimes I find somebody, and I bring it to either the agency or the publisher. Sometimes the publisher reaches out to me directly and says, "Are you available to do this?" And I say, it's just shit happens.
And that's what interested you about it.
I remember Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
I remember the
what
picture.
year was that? That was iconic.
86, 83 or 86.
It was iconic. That was.
I think back to my childhood, and I remember the space shuttle exploding.
Yeah.
I remember the crash of '87. The was it Black Monday? I guess it was. It's one of those things that kind of gets in your the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Berlin Wall in the '80s. That was my decade, man.
Huge, right?
Do you remember Manly giving me a hand job under the bleachers?
No,
that was me. That was me, and she was.
I thought it was just you giving yourself a hand
incredible.
job under the
Well,
bleachers.
it was. In
Yeah,
my
okay,
brain,
right,
she
right,
was there.
right.
She was involved.
Understood. Well,
But-
it's all in your head, right?
Yeah, it's all in my head.
your
So
mind.
if
Power of the mind. TJ.
Power of the mind.
if I think it's real, right?
Yeah.
That was the Tiananmen Square. I guess sometimes I just take shit for granted that everybody knows what
It was
things are.
89, by the way.
It was 89,
89, yeah.
and it
Thanks.
was essentially an uprising against the government in China.
It was a student uprising.
was
That's
a student
important. That's
uprising.
important
That
because
is.
in China, the students, the youth, right, have always been at the forefront of reform. They're always the people who stand up and say, we just refuse to see the system go on any longer.
Mm-hmm.
There's ridiculous corruption. There's authoritarianism. People are getting gunned down in the streets. Very similar to what we saw in Syria.
Yep.
Right?
I was going to say this was pre-Twitter.
Well,
right?
yeah, right. So the student, this is way to your point, very pre-Twitter. So the students at various universities around this immense country, because China's huge. I mean, just the landmass is huge, and there was no way that they would contact each other. And also the dialects of the language they speak are very different. But somehow, thousands and thousands of universities kind of figured out, we want to protest this. And it just rippled out.
Sort of organic.
They'd never seen anything like it.
That's also a collective conscious moment.
Yeah,
where
that's
things
what that
happen.
is.
Agreed.
Sometimes places pre-internet, there's so many examples of things happening around the world where, one thing would be happening on one side of the world and the same thing's happening on the other side of the world, and you're like, there's no way that they could have connected that.
Well, who knows
But
what?
even
Who
then-
knows?
Amazing,
what,
right?
Who knows what match is going to touch off what fire anywhere? You know what I mean? Like when people hear, I think there's something very innately human about hearing. Wow, they're doing it. They're fighting for their rights. They're gaining traction. They're trying to loosen the bonds of these people who are just oppressing the shit out of them. Why shouldn't we? This thing. I was reading about it the other day, rereading about it. The thing that started the Arab Spring. It was a fruit vendor in Tunisia that started the Arab Spring. Well, the government, he had put down $200 American to buy fruit, which is a huge investment for somebody with, he's a poor guy.
Mm-hmm.
The government officials came, and because they're government officials and they're immensely corrupt, they just took all this fruit, and because they could.
And where was this? This was in
Tunisia.
In Tunisia.
And so he self-immolated. He burned himself alive to protest what was going on. You want to talk about balls?
That's insane.
How many people do you know would burn themselves alive because...
Besides my cousin Louis,
Well,
on 4th of July, to prove a point?
yeah,
Nobody.
right.
Right. No, nobody. That is an incredibly...
And from there, Tunisia kind of changed, right? Egypt, they rebelled against Hosni Mubarak. right? And then the Syria thing was touched off by a couple of high school kids who they were watching this go, like 5 different countries that had these reforms happen all in a row, because the Middle East is typically much more oppressive regimes than even we're used to. And so what happens is these high school kids in Daraa, right, a city in the south of Syria, spray painted "Your next doctor," or words to that effect on the wall. The doctor being President Bashar al-Assad, who is an ophthalmologist and the president of the country, and a dictator, a fascist.
Right.
For this, these kids, we would chuckle at it maybe, were arrested, tortured. They're like 10, 12, 14. Yeah. And they were only released, if I'm reading this correctly, the reports, when their parents were able to get like $20,000 American together to bribe the officials. That's the way the system works over there.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm not judging it, because Lord knows we have our own problems here with similar things.
Well, you can judge it. Yeah,
but
I'll judge it. It's fucked up.
The thing, well,
right?
it was fucked up enough, to your point, where people said enough.
That's it.
Enough. And they got together, and there were riots and demonstrations. I don't think anybody was really rioting until they called in the security forces and they started opening fire on innocent people, or protesters, because the regime had been threatened. Now picture that.
I'm trying to
picture anything in this country, first of all, that would rile people up enough to,
I'm trying to wrap my brain around the thought process of the president himself, like the regime, the guy, being such a fucking horrible leader. Like the outcome may have been so much different if he was a little empathetic, a little bit different, a little bit more forgiving, a little bit more inclusive, maybe, By the way, you can still maintain control of the whole fucking country, still have all the wealth and power right?
Sure.
Why does my brain go there? Because I'm thinking, instead, you just made it such a gigantic clusterfuck, hundreds of thousands of people being murdered.
Well, yeah.
What are you doing?
To an earlier point, you're getting back what you put out there.
Yeah.
You're getting back what you put out there.
You really are.
You put out inflexibility, rigidity, authoritarianism. I will not listen. You must do what I say. I'll use force if I have to. And guess what you're getting back?
Guess what? It's coming right back.
Unfortunately, it's not being visited upon him personally.
I wish it was.
It's being visited upon the country that he put forth.
I fucking hate that guy, boys. I'll tell you right now, okay, guys?
Well,
he's a bad guy, fellas.
The reason I think we got into this is because a similar thing was happening in China.
Yeah, way to go back. I appreciate that.
A similar thing was happening in China, and the students there were very, very fervent that they should democratize the country, that the country should give a little bit. They weren't asking for huge changes. They were asking for incremental changes, which were subsequently denied to them, right?
Yeah.
In other words, the government wasn't interested in any of that. Yeah. So, long story short, they all gathered in Tiananmen Square in Beijing, which is a very famous open plot of land, and the army arrived and gunned them down. And so this caused a huge crisis internationally, because not only was China in turmoil, but you see, when it's like the Harvey Weinstein thing, the moment people see this and it's finally out, it invites people to say, am I for this or am I not? And I think most people know where that line is.
Sure.
I think most people do.
Sure.
And
when you're forced to acknowledge it or it brought to your attention.
When there are dead bodies.
Yeah, I mean.
When there's a trail of women who say, I'm so sorry that I kept this, I have my reasons for trying to keep this under wraps, but this is what's happened.
Yep.
Something in the conscious of all of us has to, it's like this little, it's like a little vibrating mechanism inside all of us. That,
like a governor almost, like a
governor, not in the political sense.
Right. The governor,
like an instrumental
sense. Yes, in an instrumental
sense. A compass needle tells us this is, it's either going to stand or it's not.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it?
We're also now in an, post-internet information age. In the past, there were genocides or events or things that happened that could kind of be denied just by sheer act of hey, didn't see it.
Correct.
But it's like now all these things exist, and we're in a world where you see these actions, you can see these things happening in a different country.
You can watch video of it.
Yeah.
People with their cell phones are just out in the streets shooting video of it. Yeah. I mean, the nice thing about having so much technology, and it can get inundating sometimes, at least sometimes.
very-
I
I
need
think
very-
everyone's still
you have
trying
to
to
pick
find
and
the
choose,
balance.
yeah.
of
trying
it.
to find
Yeah,
the balance,
yeah,
exactly.
Yep.
But the nice thing about it is that there is more accountability, right? And that is people will hold other people to task and broadcast what they see as misbehavior so that everybody, this is no longer, what does the Washington Post say? Democracy dies in darkness is their slogan ever since the election of 2016. What I think they're trying to say is when sunlight shines on a misdeed, it becomes the greatest antiseptic because you can't turn away from it anymore.
Yeah.
When people hide a slaughter, a genocide,
Mm-hmm.
you might hear rumors about it, but it doesn't activate people enough to say, guys, really?
You know,
What are we going to do about this?
what I'm thinking about right when you say that is what really I think has to change, because I don't want to get too political, but I have to for a second.
Okay, sure.
Is that you it's only really going to change like stuff like that's happening in Syria and throughout the world, stuff like
Right here, too, by the way.
And right here, yeah.
Let's not leave that out
I think you need, until we get to a point where there's good people in power, it's going to continue, because when you talk about China, I remember the uprising, and then I remember it kind of going away, and then I don't know how much changed in China. I don't know. Syria is happening before our eyes. There are people live streaming on Facebook, children getting blown up.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how the fuck can you let this go on? And then I see Russian bombers involved and United States tiptoeing around the subject. And it's very cut and dry, fellas. This is fucking bad. What are we doing? How are we allowing this to happen?
I'm going to split hairs here, and forgive me, but it's not cut and dried to me because it's a little delicate. But is it bad?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Could we take a better stand on that? I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Is it a tangled snake pit of stuff? Yeah. Does it need to be dealt with in some way? Yeah. It's tough.
I mean, there's death grips on established corruption around the world. I mean, in a simpler way, you look at something like, fossil fuel. People who have investments in those things are not going to let go of that.
They're not
So
letting go of
imagine,
that.
I mean, and that's like just something that we use on a daily basis. So imagine deeper levels of corruption and other things that are going on that have been established in governments around the world. There's a death
becomes
clutch on that
convoluted.
because
it becomes
nobody wants to let
it
go of
becomes
that.
the system.
It becomes the system.
and that's what we kind of assume to be the status quo is really just the product of our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
The governments of the world, the way, the very fact that we have currencies of different, everything that it began as a thought. You see,
Yeah.
You built the studio because you had an idea,
Mm-hmm.
and so it began as a thought. You see, and your thoughts actualize themselves through how we conduct ourselves.
Yeah.
So the thoughts that are keeping this system working are very, very powerful, and there are some people who are profiting immensely from
The
it.
thoughts are powerful.
They're the most.
That's right.
They are the first and only thing that
Because
we have.
at the end of the day, maybe you're right. Maybe cut and dry is not the way to put it, but when you see people being slaughtered just because they're in a place and they're existing, to me, there's no clear-cut example of good and bad. That can't be. But like you said, yeah, there's governments and power, and but the woman who's sitting there feeding her child who gets dismembered and blown to pieces had nothing to do with that, and it's a bad thing. When do we get to the point where it's like, fuck the bullshit, man, stop it? Is it ever gonna happen? Is it ever gonna happen?
In a small way, maybe just education and expression of the idea of
the fact that we're talking about
that we're
it
having this conversation
and it's small, and I apologize if it seems like I'm overhyping this, but the fact that more people talk about it and is a good thing.
It's good.
The fact that more people, there's nothing that you and I can do that's going to make changes overnight. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Nor tomorrow, nor the day after that. However, I'll be damned if I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I'll be damned if I'm not going to allow myself to have the opinion that there is a better way and that we can find it. And that maybe if I can't alter the problem that's going on in Syria or any other locale, I can still treat everybody who comes into my personal circle
Yeah.
as if they are my equal and as if they are worthy of respect.
Right. And I mean,
that's all that I can do.
Back to your book and the book that you helped this person write. What's his name?
Tong Bao Zhou.
And the name of the book?
My Two Chinas.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a great example. You you gave voice to somebody.
Yeah.
And helped him have his voice. And the book is about specifically.
It's about what he went through, not only to help organize Tiananmen Square, but what happened to him when they found out that he was one of the guys who organized Tiananmen Square, and how they took him through the sham of a court system that was going on at that time, and they just kind of, without any real cause, trumped up charges, threw him in prison. What the Chinese penal system is like, which is like, I talk about having my eyes opened.
Horrible.
Just not only horrible, but kind of bizarre. Like they put their workers, the Christmas lights that you and I take for granted, we'll probably have them up in like 2 months' time. Those are made by Chinese prisoners, political prisoners.
Really?
Yeah. Like we used to have people making license plates. I don't think that even goes on anymore. But
people in China, can you imagine the Chinese government going, we need cheaper labor?
That's what it is.
Holy shit.
That's what it is.
They get paid 4 cents a week anyway.
They get
right?
approximately,
whatever it is.
So their system is set up where it's like they become the labor force that perpetuates their economy by flooding the market with cheap goods, which of course they can do because they're not paying these people anything. Right?
It's incredible.
It's part of a very, very integrated picture, It's not just about political prisoners. It's about Christmas lights, you see, then at that point. And it's like,
so fucking ridiculous.
It's life.
Holy
it's the
shit.
tapestry of our world, and you can't, there's a way that because I find myself doing this all the time. You're looking at the tapestry and you're going, oh my God, it's so huge. You can just take one thread. Nobody can really work with the tapestry. It's too big. But you can take one thread.
Start to unravel it a little bit.
Follow it, unravel it, tie it in a bow, do whatever it is.
Do something.
Do something.
You can take the thread.
You can take the thread. That's within, I think, the human individual purview, is to do one thing with one thread.
Right.
And if enough people, here's what I like to console myself with, because it can feel like you're swinging an axe in the dark, Like, well, what am I doing? But if enough people pick up one thread, one corner of the tapestry changes, And if that happens over a period of time, maybe not in my lifetime, maybe not in my son's, maybe not in yours or mine, the tapestry does change. And we're here in we're here and gone.
Yeah, I know.
It happens so fast that we like to console ourselves that hey,
Yeah, I know.
We're important. We're not.
No.
Also, evolution is not instant. I think we're used to instant. Bringing it back to Sanka. But yes, but it's not. It's not, and it happens over time. But it does require a catalyst. It does require an expression to the consciousness and something different for that to happen. So.
Yeah, and we live in, and the fact that you said that I think is wonderful, because first of all, I resonate with it. So selfishly, I'm like, yeah, that's my viewpoint. But also in our society, which has become so instant gratification, right? Pick up your phone, do anything, right? Order something, have it there tomorrow. We forget, I think, that the really, really big stuff, the important stuff, doesn't work that way. The really big stuff, the important stuff, the purposes of our lives, for instance, if I can use that word, doesn't happen overnight. It is the work of our lives, right? And so it needs time to gestate. It needs commitment. It needs constant attention. So it's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to be able to tweet about it, put it on Instagram, and just call it a day and say, solve the war in Syria. You're not going to be able to do that.
Not on 145 or 40 characters.
Right, whatever they're allowing these days, But if everything that we do is intended toward that, well, then, at the end of all things, we might have the ability to hold our heads up and say, I did a little something. I did just a little something, and I'm fucking proud of that.
It's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Damon, thanks for being here.
Thank you for
I know we're
having
going to have
me.
to wrap it up, right,
Yep.
bro? What are you working on now? You want to talk about any of it on the way out?
No, I'm good. Just look to your bookstore.
Okay.
And you'll see something soon.
Damon DiMarco. Damon, DIMARCO.
Yeah, thank you.
.com.
3 people like this interviews.
And our friend Gadjaluzzi.
Yeah.
always with us.
Very close.
Thank you.
He's the only guy. Nobody's gonna know who you ever who you are because we never say your name right.
Good.
Fucking terrorist. What?
Thank you for listening to the Three People Like This interview show.
Said they're gonna break it down and sell it 'cause I know that you be listening, huh? Said that I'm a movie star, said to drive me a big old car. Got a house one near one box. You see me, believe me, I'm about to make you look on troll. Yeah, well, hold up. Said you need to get a hold of your pride. Said I've been about to be da-da-da-da-da. So you need to get a hold of yourself. Yeah, well, you see me, believe me, I'm about to make you look on troll. Yeah. But the one thing they always talking about, yeah, the one thing they always know, they always turn to me. 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 Ooh, you, when you do me like that, sit the end down and tune into the capital, just see the more light than that. Yeah, but you see me, believe me, I'm about to make it look on troll. But the one thing they always talking about, yeah, the one thing they always know, they always deny me. 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 Well, tell me